Time, the wonderful Fean.
Thank you very much. Hello everyone. So it's called All That Glitters, and my name's Kath. I work with the Hastings Museum and Art Gallery, which maybe, if we could do a show of hands as to who's been to the museum here, that would be really cool. Thank you. So we're looking at about 50% maybe? Don't know, I'm not very good at, I'll throw a little quad around you and then, pick out the numbers of how many of you actually answered in a moment. But I do have a little form at the end, which will be fun. So yeah, All That Glitters. I've got to click it, haven't I, to make it work?
Yeah, or use the arrow.
Oh, the arrow. Yeah, so what I wanted to explore was the idea of what we treasure in life, why, the exciting briefcase that I brought with me today. I think this is its second outing. I bought it at a flea market in Paris, which is one of my most favourite things to go and be at. Partly for just being in a cafe nearby and watching all the people, and then also finding that wonderful thing that you then have to rush off and get your, it's not francs anymore, is it? Euros for, and barter down and all that kind of thing. So that kind of keys into something around the idea of how we as human beings seem to be quite captivated by objects, stories, the chase, the hunt, that kind of thing. So this particular piece that I wanted to share with you from the museum is very exciting. I've got my notes all over the place here, and I just want to make sure I get some of the bits right, because I'm not a curator. I work with communities to get them involved with what's going on in the museum. So it is from World War II. Ronald Humphreys, who was 20 years old at the time, got a flare gun in the right eye and ended up getting this badge because he's part of a group called the Guinea Pig Club, who were the first people to experience prosthetics in World War II. And this was part of an exhibition called Hidden in Sight, which was all about disability and then making that visible through the objects that we have at the museum. So why do we collect, and what's it all about? Well, basically, if you imagine, I'm very excited, this is a pointy thing. I was actually talking about your talk. I was listening to the story of the journey of saffron from one side of the world to the other as I was writing this last night, and I was thinking about what kind of torch could I bring of my son's to use, but it turns out we've got this. So if this is the brain, then there's a little area down here that has a name which sparks up when you're really excited about collecting things, and it's called, I thought I'd better do this for the glamorous assistant, the negroventral tegmental area, which is basically, it gets loaded with dopamine, and it's not even the actual object, it's that anticipation of either collecting or adding to a collection that you already have. So moving on to the collections that we have, and this most fabulous cape, which is made of feathers from a Hawaiian bird that no longer exists, sadly. It was made not because of this. No, there's a little sign. wait. It's not our fault. So a family called the Brassies, who used to travel everywhere back in the 1800s, or the 18th century anyway, very rich family, and took their whole family with them and their pets and their crew of 30 on this Sunbeam yacht across to all sorts of lands, and then brought a lot of it back to Hastings, and that makes up quite a lot of our collection. So this is from Hawaii, from it looks like bird, but I'm not sure because I don't speak Hawaiian, so sorry if anyone else does and they want to correct me, or even make the call of the bird. No. Hey! That's great. So, and what they have put a sign up in the museum to say, don't worry, because the birds would fly away afterwards. So there'd be a few feathers from each bird collected, and then they'd fly away. And the cape itself was worn only by men in ceremonies and also at war time. I thought it would be great if we could twin it with this particular cape that was shown at the V&A Museum, which, funnily enough, my sister used to work at as a event manager. So there's some kind of weird, thing going on with our genes and where we end up. But yeah, David Attenborough gave the talk to announce this particular cape because it was made with the threads, the silken threads of 1.2 million golden orb spiders in Madagascar. So it's just an incredible story. It took 8 years for these scientists and artists to gather the thread, and then the spiders that were, some of their thread would be taken, it would be woven with something else, I don't know what, and then made into this quite incredible piece that you see here. So it would be wonderful if we could twin with them. I thought that would be grand. And anything else I wanted to say about that? The spiders will return to the wild, happy ending. Okay, then we've got, moving on. I was Googling all over the place and looking, went down so many rabbit holes with the preparation for this talk. I called out to the Hastings Creators Group and got so many people telling me what they collect and how passionate they are about collecting. And this town, and actually along the coast, over to Brighton and Eastbourne as well, there seems to be a bit of a thing going on where we do enjoy, we're in this incredible space that was discovered and is now somewhere that is, collecting various beautiful curios and pieces of art. It's just in us, it's in our DNA. So Deborah, who put together the Who Are You project, has put on a lot of found photographs that she hopes somebody will visit and maybe find part of their family, and it's thousands of them. I do this, I collect stones. Every time I go down to the beach, it's not my son, it's me who collects all the stones. This was a competition in a family, John's family, to say who's got the best stone from the beach. And I just thought it was such a lovely idea just to, kind of, and I don't know, everyone will have a favourite for some reason. So also there's something about that treasured and very haptic thing around holding something that takes on meaning all of a sudden because you've discovered it. And often it's to do with the stories around it or who you were with at the time. I just loved this image. I'm just going to grab a drink of water. Is that mine? No. I'll make sure it's fine. And this is about the idea of identity within. So that you make your home in stuff. And again, in the research that I was doing, I've got friends who I thought would have really specific collections, and one of them was just like, no, I don't collect anything. I was like, how? She's a photographer, so, she does, really, but she said she's a minimalist, and I was like, how are you a minimalist in a town of hoarders? Because Hastings is full of hoarders, right? This is one of my favourite places. So yeah, let's have a hands up for who's been inside or gone past Robert's rubbish. I can't even say it, Robert's rubbish. You can't take photos inside, I know, yeah, which is fair enough, to be honest, because it is such a treasure trove. So if anyone hasn't been, I would highly recommend it. And even on the internet, he's done very well not to, have all that much stuff up there. And there's an incredible talk that he gave with Lorna Hamilton Brown in the We Out Here exhibition that was on at Hastings Contemporary that I stumbled across. And basically, it's just wonderful. He has gathered together so many African art memorabilia, and he knows so much about it because he's not just a person who has these kind of, in quotes, junk shops, but he's also a really good caterer, and he's moved around the world on boats because he was a chef on the boats, and there's all these stories that kind of pile on top of each other and on top of each other in these ways. And there was particularly something that I wanted to share from the goldfinch, which makes me feel and think a lot around the feeling that you get when you go to his shop. So I was on the slightly shabby part of the street that was mainly residential. Many of the numbers weren't clearly posted, and just as I was wondering if I'd missed it and ought to double back, I suddenly found myself looking at the words Hobart and Blackwell painted in neat, old-fashioned arch upon the window of a shop. Through the dusty windows I saw Staffordshire dogs and Mallorca cats, dusty crystal, tarnished silver, antique chairs and settees, upholstered in sallow, old brocade, and an elaborate faience birdcage, miniature marble obelisks atop a marble-topped pedestal table, a pair of alabaster cockatoos. It was the kind of shop my mother would have liked, packed tightly but dilapidated, with stacks of old books on the floor. Then, so suddenly I started back. The door opened and I found myself gazing up at a large and unexpected person. He was 4'4" or 6'5" at least, haggard, noble-jawed, heavy. Over his clothes, a rich paisley robe with satin lapels fell almost to his ankles and flowed massively around him, like something a leading man might wear in a 1930s movie, worn but still impressive. So Robert's Rummage is something of that, but then also the worn but still impressive kind of leads me to my place of work, which is the Hastings Museum and Art Gallery. This is one of the projects that we did with the Queer History Collective, and Glenys is a woman who has trained as a carpenter and made her own box that she's then gifted to the museum, so it's now part of our collection. So we are collecting, today's creations as well as latter days, and there's a wonderful video that tells her story, all about basically what it was like to be in a carpentry school, being the only woman there, being a lesbian there, and starting to end up helping the guys with their homework and doing the draftsmanship on the sly in exchange for bits of wood. So there was all these kind of exchanges going on. And she said that the box itself has held rags, socks, dog leads, keys, all sorts of things. So it's that, again, that kind of talisman thing that comes with collecting. This also is in our collection, and it's something that is quite common, I think. From 1914, at Christmas time, there were little tin boxes given to all of the soldiers for Christmas, and they'd either have cigarettes and chocolates in with a picture of the royalty as well. So, and the idea around this was I went to see a good friend, Neil, who collects lots of things. He's always scoundering, looking around on the floor for objects, and will find little bits that he then puts together in a certain story that he then leaves somewhere for his 7-year-old son just to come across and to play with. And this idea of the milagros for him is really big, which is a Mexican word for charm or sacred thing. So again, it's like, how do these things that were nothing take on meaning all of a sudden? Including these quite incredible creations. So I wanted to introduce you to Hastings and St Leonard's very own Adam Wyde, who is a Guinness World Book of Records winner for the biggest number of Christmas brooches here in the UK. And I had an interview with him the other day, and it was just fantastic to talk to him about how it started. So it started in 1984 in Copenhagen. He picked up one brooch, and little did he know he'd end up, showing them at Charleston House last year. We're talking about, whether or not we could do something with him for it, and we're working with him anyway on ideas around the museum and interacting more with various different groups in Hastings. It's just fabulous because some of the brooches are really quite mundane, some of them are very beautiful, and his passion for them is just electric. His partner has to live with these items, I mean, when they got married, I don't think he realised that he was moving in with, the thousands of objects as well, and that's it, this kind of life that the collection can take on is bigger. You've got yourself, the other person, and the relationship. In this case, you've got yourself, the other person, the relationship, and the collection. So, but yeah, the detail that he goes into, he's writing a book about it, about Christmas, and that's hopefully going to come out sometime towards the end of the year, but he's not giving himself any pressure, which I love. This is another quite incredible location in Hastings, which is the Flower Makers Museum down in the old town, and the objects that you can purchase there are all fireproof, all kind of made with the presses still that have been around for yonks and yonks, and it's just quite unique to it's a strange, unique Hastings thing. You go down into the basements, and there's just a lot of handwritten cards explaining what's going on, what these things are, and I think prima ballerinas have been gifted and have used or commissioned things from this group, and also it's still used in sets and props and that kind of thing. Another aspect of collecting is bird watching, and we've got the great bird watch now, but these ones are quite interesting going back to 1915, and I just love the hand script that you've got there and the different incidental collections that you can make along the way that take on such meaning when they're passed to somebody else or held somewhere in a precious way. In Margate, there's a place called the Shell Grotto, and there's something around that I found somehow speaks a little bit to what we have in Hastings with the Durbar Hall, which is this very beautiful, wrought, carved wooden room that we host weddings at and events, and there's going to be a performance through the museum space that Darren in the audience today is involved with, along with AfriColab, and so look out for that in June, is that right? I wanted to just mention a little bit around colour and pattern and miniature, which is why I put that up. Also that this is Bottle Alley. There's kind of parts of museumness, or the idea of the built environment also being a kind of museum. We've got so many brilliant artists here. This took me ages to work out. I actually had to read the kind of script above it. But this is Pete Cornell, who has a workshop down in near to Rock'n'Roll, and collage seems to be making a comeback quite a lot at the moment. It was huge after the Second World War. People were making collage as a way of piecing their lives back together. It's featured in so many different films, Amélie being one of my favourite, over in Amélie something in Paris, isn't it? This is our current exhibition that's going on over at the museum at the moment, which is a woman called Ellen Preble, and she is neurodivergent and works with Project Artworks, who were recently up for the Turner Prize, and so that's a direct collaboration, and she's been studying lots of different elements of nature, and it's just a very beautiful exhibition to come and visit. And then I'm pretty sure this is the first kind of call-out that was put together for the museum, which is just really fascinating to read around the kinds of things that they were looking for. So specimens of local natural history, especially marine animals and plants, check, objects connected with the past, silk weaving, and the work of iron. And just even to, if that came through your door, it would just be quite interesting to see what would come from that and what kinds of collections there are actually in this room. So that's why I've got with me a little form if you do want to fill one in and let me know what you've got, what your collection is, because I'm kind of envisaging a roadshow type thing, that our museum's packed, we've got too much stuff, but it would be wonderful to have spaces, maybe like this one, where you could have tables and just go and look at everyone's incredible collections. That's it. Thank you very much.
Fean.